She got a stranger's call before her wedding. Never knew he was the millionaire who'd stop it. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The clock read 1:57 a.m. when Ella Brooks jolted awake to the sound of her phone vibrating on the nightstand. The storm outside had turned the sky over Manhattan into a restless blur of lightning and rain. Her first thought was that it must be her fiancé, Ethan, checking in about the wedding rehearsal tomorrow. She reached for the phone with sleepy hands. Unknown number. She hesitated for a moment before answering. Hello? Her voice was soft, uncertain. What came through was not a response, but a man's voice, low, steady, and tired, like someone who had been running for miles. If you can hear this, please, do not go through with it. He does not deserve you. Then silence. The call ended. Ella froze, staring at her screen as the storm rumbled outside. Her heart pounded in her chest. For a moment, she wondered if it was some prank or a wrong number. Still half asleep, she replayed the voicemail, and that same voice, gentle but urgent, filled her quiet apartment again. Do not go through with it. He does not deserve you. The words felt too intimate, too precise, as if they were meant for her. She shook her head and tried to laugh it off. Weird, she murmured, placing the phone face down. But her reflection in the window said otherwise. Her face looked pale, her eyes restless. The engagement ring on her finger glimmered under the dim lamp, like a question she had been too afraid to ask herself. Outside, thunder cracked, and rain slid down the glass like tears. Sleep never returned that night. By morning, the voicemail still echoed in her head. Ella brewed coffee that went cold untouched. Her to-do list for the day was long florist at 9, dress fitting at 11, and the rehearsal dinner at 5. Everything was planned to perfection. Yet nothing felt right. When she walked into the wedding venue later that afternoon, the staff rushed to greet her. Miss Brooks, the Hailtech team just arrived to check the sound system. Hailtech? She repeated, adjusting the strap of her purse. The name sounded familiar, though she could not recall why. Then she saw him. A man in a black coat stood near the stage, speaking quietly to his assistant while reviewing the lighting grid. Tall, confident, mid-30s perhaps, with that calm authority that filled a room without trying. When he turned slightly, a streak of sunlight caught his face, and for the briefest moment, Ella forgot to breathe. That voice. It was him. The stranger from the 2 a.m. call. She blinked hard, trying to convince herself it was a coincidence. But when he spoke again, giving directions to the crew, the same tone vibrated in her chest like a memory come alive. Make sure the mics are tested before rehearsal, he said. Ella's pulse quickened. Who was he? And why did his words, those strange, haunting words from the night before, still feel like a warning meant just for her? As he turned toward her, their eyes met for the first time. For a second, everything, the noise, the lights, the people, faded into silence. Neither of them spoke. But something in that moment told Ella this was not a coincidence at all. And deep down, she already knew. That wrong call was about to change everything. Ella tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept drifting back to that voice. The rehearsal buzzed with chatter, photographers adjusting lenses, and bridesmaids laughing as they arranged flowers. Yet all she could hear was the echo of that midnight warning. Lucas Hale stood across the hall, speaking to his assistant near the soundboard. He looked calm, composed, perfectly in control, the opposite of the man she imagined when she first heard that broken, tired voice at 2 in the morning. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Still, every time he spoke, something inside her tightened. Excuse me, Miss Brooks, the venue coordinator called, breaking her thoughts. The lighting team needs your approval for the aisle setup. Of course, she replied, forcing a smile. She crossed the hall, clipboard in hand, giving quick instructions. But she could feel his eyes on her, the kind of quiet attention that made her heart stumble. When she finally looked back, Lucas was already focused on his work again. By late afternoon, the room transformed into a golden glow of string lights and white roses. Guests would fill this space tomorrow, cameras flashing, music swelling, and she would walk down that aisle toward a man she was not sure she loved. The thought made her chest ache. At the refreshment table, her friend and florist, Mia, leaned close. "You look like you have seen a ghost. Are you nervous?" Ella let out a small laugh. "Something like that. Just wedding stress, I guess." Mia raised an eyebrow. "You guess? You've been zoning out all day." Before Ella could answer, a deep voice cut through the room. "Could someone help me find the event coordinator?" It was Lucas. He was holding a clipboard, scanning the staff list. Their eyes met again, and for a moment the world shrank to a single heartbeat. "I am Ella Brooks," she said, steadying her tone. "Is there something wrong with the setup?" "No," he replied, studying her face as if trying to place a memory. "I just wanted to confirm the power schedule for tomorrow. I heard you were in charge." She nodded, showing him the printed plan. Their hands brushed as she passed the sheet, a brief touch that sent an unexpected warmth through her. "Everything looks fine," he said quietly, glancing back at her. "Long day?" "Longest week of my life," she admitted with a tired smile. He chuckled softly. "You are the one getting married?" The question caught her off guard. "Yes, tomorrow." For a second, something unreadable flickered in his expression: surprise, maybe even regret. "Then I wish you happiness," he said, but his voice carried a strange heaviness. She hesitated, wanting to ask why those words sounded almost sad, but he was already turning away, giving orders to his team. That night, Ella sat alone in her small apartment, the city lights flickering through the rain-streaked windows. She replayed the voicemail once more, comparing every tone, every pause, every breath. It was him. She was sure of it now. Her chest tightened. Why would a stranger call her in the middle of the night, tell her not to marry, and then appear at her wedding venue as if fate had drawn him there? Her phone buzzed with a message from her fiancé. "Ethan, do not be late tomorrow. My father is inviting investors. This wedding has to look perfect." She stared at the words, her stomach twisting. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered the same warning again. "Do not go through with it." Outside, thunder rolled over the city, and for the first time, Ella wondered if the real mistake was not the midnight call, but the wedding she was about to walk into. Morning light crept through the thin curtains of Ella's apartment, washing the room in a pale gold haze. The wedding day had arrived. Her dress hung by the window, ivory silk glinting softly in the sunday. It should have felt magical. Instead, it felt like a weight pressing on her chest. Her mother knocked on the door, voice trembling with emotion. "Sweetheart, the car is downstairs. Everyone is waiting." "I will be right there, Mom," Ella said, forcing brightness into her tone. When the door closed, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. The voicemail icon still glowed red, waiting to be deleted. She pressed play again, whispering the words with him. "If you can hear this, do not go through with it." Her pulse quickened. She should delete it. She should move on. But her thumb hovered over the screen, frozen. At the venue, the air buzzed with the energy of last-minute preparations. Guests were already arriving, photographers arranging their lenses, servers setting champagne flutes in neat lines. Everything looked perfect. Everything felt wrong. Ella stepped out of the car, bouquet trembling slightly in her hands. Ethan stood near the altar, dressed impeccably in a white tuxedo, his smile practiced for the cameras. He waved when he saw her, but the gesture felt mechanical. "You are late," he said under his breath when she reached him. "Try to keep it together. My father is watching." "I know," she murmured, swallowing hard. Music began to play. The crowd turned, phones lifted, flashes blinking like stars. Ella took a slow breath and started walking down the aisle. Each step echoed louder than the last. Her thoughts scattered between the vows she did not want to say and the voice she could not forget. Halfway down, she noticed movement near the back of the room. A man had just entered through the side doors, rain still dripping from his coat. He stood still, scanning the crowd. Her heart stumbled. Lucas Hale. He should not have been here. He was supposed to be gone after the setup. Yet there he was, watching her like he had come for a reason. She hesitated mid-step, the guests whispering as the music wavered. Ethan frowned, gesturing for her to continue. But Lucas started walking forward, slow and deliberate. Security moved to intercept him, but he raised his hand, calm and commanding. The murmurs grew louder as he reached the center aisle. "Ella," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. The same voice she had heard through static and storm. You do not have to do this." Gasps rippled through the room. Ella froze, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Ethan's face turned crimson. "Who is this man?" he hissed. Lucas's eyes never left hers. "That night I called the wrong number. But maybe it was not a mistake. You deserve someone who loves you, not someone using you." Cameras flashed. Guests whispered. Ella's heart thundered in her chest. Ethan stepped forward, furious. "Get out of here before I—" Lucas did not flinch. "You should tell her the truth, Ethan. About the deal. About her mother's shop." The room fell silent. Ella looked from one man to the other, confusion twisting into dread. "What deal?" Ethan's jaw tightened, his silence louder than any confession. Tears filled her eyes as realization dawned. The investment, the sudden proposal, the perfect timing, it was never about love. It was business. The bouquet slipped from her hands and hit the floor. Lucas's voice softened. "You have a choice, Ella. You always did." For a long moment, she could not breathe. Then, in front of everyone, she turned away from the altar. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she walked toward the exit, past the man who had warned her, past the guests still whispering in disbelief. Outside, rain began to fall again. She looked back once, meeting Lucas's gaze through the open doors. That wrong call had just saved her life. Rain poured over the marble steps as Ella stumbled outside, her veil clinging to her shoulders. The storm had returned, fierce and relentless, soaking through the silk of her dress. She did not care. Her chest heaved as if every breath was breaking free from years of pretending. Behind her, the doors burst open. "Ella, wait!" Lucas's voice cut through the thunder. She turned, tears mixing with rain on her face. "Why did you do that? You ruined everything." "I stopped something that was already wrong," he said, stepping closer. His dark coat dripped with rain, his eyes steady but full of concern. "You deserve to know the truth. Ethan was not marrying you for love." "No. I did not need you to save me," she said, her voice trembling. "You are a stranger. You do not even know me." "I called you by accident that night," Lucas said quietly. "I was leaving a message for my sister, telling her not to marry a man who was lying to her. But when I heard your voice on the line, I do not know, it felt like fate was correcting something." Ella shook her head, trying to make sense of his words. "That does not make any sense." "Oza, neither does marrying someone who only wants your name on a contract," he replied softly. The rain softened to a drizzle. Ella looked away, her hands shaking as she wiped her face. The street was nearly empty, the noise of the city muffled by the storm. For the first time, she felt the weight of silence, the silence that comes after truth breaks everything open. Lucas took a slow breath. "You do not have to decide anything right now, but please, do not go back inside. You deserve better than a deal disguised as a wedding." She let out a short, broken laugh. "Better? I just walked away from everything. My job, my security, my family's business. I have nothing left." "You still have your honesty," he said, meeting her gaze. "That is more than most people ever find." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The streetlights flickered against the wet pavement, their reflections merging in shallow puddles. Lucas took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders without asking. "Come on," he said gently. "You will catch a cold. There is a cafe around the corner." Ella hesitated, then nodded. They walked side by side through the quiet streets, the sound of their footsteps mingling with the rain. Inside the cafe, the warm air smelled of coffee and cinnamon. She sat by the window, clutching the mug the waiter placed in front of her. Lucas sat across from her, still dripping rain onto the floor. "I did not mean to embarrass you," he said. "But when I heard what Ethan was planning, I could not stay silent." She looked up, her eyes tired but curious. "How did you even know about that?" "I work with his father's company," he admitted. "I saw the contract this morning. It listed your mother's flower shop as collateral for a real estate deal. Ethan planned to sell the property after the wedding. You would have lost everything." Ella's hand trembled against the cup. "You are serious?" He nodded. "I could show you the documents if you need proof." She stared at him, anger and disbelief warring inside her. "Why would you do this? Why help me?" Lucas leaned back, his expression softening. "Because someone once saved me from making the same mistake. Sometimes you have to ruin the wrong day to save the right life." The cafe grew quiet around them. Ella's tears fell silently onto the table, but this time they carried something new relief. For the first time in years, she was free. And sitting across from her was the stranger whose wrong call had become the beginning of everything real. The rain had finally stopped by the time they left the cafe. The city glistened under the soft glow of streetlights, and the air smelled clean, almost new. Ella walked beside Lucas in silence, his coat still draped around her shoulders. Her dress, once white and flawless, now carried stains of rain and freedom. "I do not know what to do now," she said quietly as they reached the corner. "I cannot go home. I cannot face anyone." Lucas glanced at her, his tone calm but sincere. "Then do not. Take a moment for yourself. There is no rule saying you have to fix everything in one day." She smiled faintly, a small, tired curve of her lips. "You sound like someone who has made a lot of mistakes." "I have," he admitted, "more than I would like to count." They reached the parking lot behind the cafe. His black sedan waited under a flickering lamp. He opened the passenger door for her without a word. For a second, she hesitated, unsure if she should trust him. But then again, he was the only person who had told her the truth. "Where are we going?" she asked as he started the engine. "Somewhere safe," he said simply. "You can rest there. My sister's place. She will understand." The city blurred past the windows as they drove. Ella watched the lights reflect in streaks across the glass, her mind replaying every moment from the morning Ethan's cold stare, her mother's nervous smile, the guests whispering as she walked away. It felt like another life already fading behind her. After half an hour, the car turned onto a quiet street lined with trees. Lucas parked in front of a small townhouse with soft yellow lights glowing inside. A woman opened the door before they even knocked. "Lucas, what on earth?" she began, then saw Ella and stopped. "Oh, come in, please." "This is Claire," Lucas said. "My sister." Claire smiled warmly. "You must be freezing. Let me get you some dry clothes." As Ella changed into a simple sweater and jeans, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. She had left her own wedding. She had nothing but a phone, a wet dress, and a voicemail that had somehow led her here. When she stepped into the living room, Lucas was waiting with 2 mugs of tea. The fire crackled softly behind him. "Thank you," she said, taking a seat across from him. "For everything. I still cannot believe any of this is real." Lucas studied her for a long moment before speaking. "What are you going to do next?" She exhaled slowly. "I do not know. My mother will be disappointed. But at least she will still have the shop. I think that is what matters most." He nodded. "You did the right thing. Walking away takes more strength than staying." She looked at him, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "You talk like someone who knows what that feels like." He smiled, a trace of sadness behind it. "I do. My father built an empire, and I spent years pretending I wanted to live in it, until I realized it was not my dream at all." "Is that why you sounded so broken on the phone that night?" she asked softly. He met her chaza. "Maybe. I was calling my sister because she was marrying a man who reminded me too much of the person I used to be. I wanted to stop her before it was too late, but instead, I reached you." Ella's eyes filled with quiet wonder. "And now?" "Now," he said, his voice steady, "I am glad I did." The room fell silent except for the sound of rain dripping from the roof outside. Ella took a sip of her tea, her hands finally steady. For the first time that night, she felt safe. And though neither of them said it out loud, both knew that something irreversible had begun, something that had started as a mistake but already felt like destiny. The next morning, pale sunlight spilled through the window of Claire's townhouse, resting softly on Ella's face. For the first time in weeks, she had slept deeply. When she woke, the borrowed sweater still smelled faintly of lavender detergent. She stretched slowly, her body sore but lighter, her mind strangely calm. Downstairs, she heard the low murmur of voices. Lucas and Claire were talking over breakfast. She hesitated at the top of the stairs, not wanting to intrude, but Claire's voice carried warmly. "She is brave, Lucas. Not many people could walk away from a wedding like that." "It was not bravery," Lucas replied, his tone quiet. "It was honesty. Sometimes that takes more courage than anything." Ella stepped into the kitchen, and both of them turned. "Good morning," she said, a little shy. Claire smiled. "You must be starving. Sit down." The table was simple toast, scrambled eggs, and black coffee. But to Ella, it felt like a feast after the chaos of yesterday. She took a seat, her hands still trembling slightly around the mug. "I am sorry for showing up like this," she said softly. "I did not mean to cause trouble." "You did not," Claire said kindly. "Lucas told me everything. You did the right thing. Lucas looked at her across the table. Do you have anywhere you want to go today? I can drive you. Ella hesitated. Maybe to my mother's shop. She will worry. He nodded. I can wait outside if you prefer. No, she said quickly. You can come in. She should meet the man who saved her business. That afternoon, they drove through the quiet streets of Queens. The small flower shop sat between a bakery and a laundromat, its faded sign reading Brooks Blooms. When Ella pushed open the door, the familiar scent of lilies and soil washed over her. Her mother looked up from the counter, her eyes wide. Ella? Hi, Mom, she said softly. I am sorry I did not call. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Sweetheart, what happened? People said you ran out of the church. Ella glanced at Lucas, then back at her mother. I found out something. The wedding was not what it seemed. Lucas stepped forward, offering a polite nod. Mrs. Brooks, your shop was about to be sold as part of a business deal under Ethan's family. Ella stopped it before it was finalized. Her mother's hand went to her mouth. Oh, my God. It is safe now, Lucas added. I made sure the documents were void. Ella's mother looked between them, her expression softening. You saved us. Lucas shook his head. No, she did. They spent the afternoon repairing a loose shelf and trimming wilted stems, trying to bring the shop back to life. Every time Ella caught Lucas watching her, her heart skipped. There was no pretense in his gaze, only quiet admiration. When the sun began to set, they stood outside the shop. The air smelled of rain and flowers. I should go, he said. You need time with your mother. She nodded, though part of her did not want him to leave. Thank you, Lucas, for everything. He smiled faintly. Do not thank me. Just promise me one thing. No. What is that? If you ever doubt what you deserve again, listen to that voicemail one last time, then delete it. She laughed softly. I think I will. He walked away toward his car, the evening light catching the edge of his coat. As he drove off, Ella stood on the sidewalk, her mother's arm around her shoulder, the sky painted gold and pink above them. For the first time, she did not feel lost. She felt free, grounded in truth, and somewhere deep inside, she knew that this was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning of something real. A week passed. The chaos faded, replaced by quiet mornings at the flower shop. Ella spent her days arranging bouquets, learning to smile again without forcing it. The small bell above the door became her favorite sound, simple, grounding, a reminder that life moved forward no matter what had been lost. Her mother seemed lighter too, humming softly as she watered the plants. The news about the canceled wedding had spread through town, but Ella did not care anymore. The whispers had no power now. What mattered was that she could breathe again. Still, she thought about Lucas. Every night before closing, she would glance at her phone, half expecting a message. None came. Part of her wanted to reach out, but something held her back, maybe pride, maybe fear of what she might feel if he answered. One afternoon, while trimming white roses for a hospital order, she noticed a familiar car park outside. Her heart stumbled. The door opened, and Lucas walked in, holding a bouquet unlike any she had ever seen: wild lilies, blue hydrangeas, and a single white calla lily at the center. Hi, he said, his tone calm but warm. She blinked, surprised but happy. Lucas, I was not expecting you. I figured, he said with a faint smile. I was nearby for a meeting. Thought I should stop by and return something. He handed her a small velvet pouch. Inside was her engagement ring. She had forgotten about it in the chaos of that day. You kept this? It was left on the altar, he said. I thought you might want to sell it, or throw it into the ocean. Either way, it is yours. She closed the pouch slowly, her fingers brushing his. Thank you. He hesitated, watching her. How have you been? Better, she said. The shop is doing well. My mother is smiling again. I guess that is what matters most. He nodded. That is good. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just full of things unspoken. Finally, he said, I am leaving the city for a while. My company is expanding a branch in Chicago. It is something I need to do. Her chest tightened. For how long? I am not sure, he said. Maybe months, maybe longer. Oh, she said softly. Well, I am happy for you. Lel. He looked at her, a flicker of regret in his eyes. Ella, I do not want you to think that what happened between us was only circumstance. That night, when I called by mistake, It felt like the world was trying to tell me something. Meeting you just proved it. Her throat tightened. Lucas, I do not expect anything, he said gently. I just needed you to know that the wrong call was the right moment of my life. The air in the shop grew still. For a heartbeat, she thought he might reach for her, but he only smiled and turned toward the door. As he stepped outside, a sudden gust of wind blew through, scattering petals across the floor. Ella stood there, clutching the bouquet he had brought. The flowers were imperfect, uneven, but beautiful, just like everything real. Later that evening, as the shop lights dimmed, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. If you can hear this, it is time to start living, not hiding. No name, no signature, just those words. She laughed softly through tears. Somewhere across the city, she imagined Lucas standing by a window, his phone in hand, smiling the same quiet smile. And for the first time, she did not feel like she was waiting for something to begin. It already had. 2 months later, the city was in full bloom. Spring painted the streets with color, and Ella's flower shop had never been busier. Couples came in almost every day, holding hands and arguing over bouquets. Each time she tied a ribbon or wrapped a stem, she smiled quietly, wondering if they understood how fragile love could be and how beautiful it became once it was honest. Her mother had recovered completely. The shop was thriving again, and Ella's life had found rhythm. But sometimes, when she closed the register at night, she still caught herself glancing at the empty street outside, waiting for a car that never came. Then, one Friday morning, an envelope arrived. No return address, only her name written in familiar handwriting. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small flash drive. The note read, "Play this, if you still remember that night." Her heart skipped as she inserted the flash drive into the shop's small computer. The screen flickered, and a video began to play. Lucas appeared, standing in an office filled with boxes and sunlight. His tie was loose, his hair slightly messy, but his smile was the same. "Hey, Ella," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "If you are watching this, it means I never found the right words in person. Chicago has been good, but it feels empty. I keep thinking about that cafe, about the rain, about the moment you looked at me like you were hearing the truth for the first time. I guess what I am saying is, I miss you. Maybe this is another mistake, but if it is, I do not mind repeating it." Oh, the video ended with him holding up a small wooden box. He opened it to reveal a pressed white calla lily, the same flower that had been in the bouquet he brought her weeks ago. Ella covered her mouth, tears spilling over her fingers. For a moment, she could not move. Then, without overthinking, she grabbed her phone and typed back the only words that felt right. "Come home." The next few days passed slowly. She tried to distract herself with work, but her thoughts were somewhere between New York and Chicago. Then, one afternoon, while she was arranging tulips for a wedding order, the doorbell chimed. When she looked up, she froze. Lucas stood there, suitcase in hand, looking at her with that same steady calm that had changed everything. "You said come home?" he said softly. "So I did." For a second, she could not speak. Then she laughed through her tears and crossed the room, throwing her arms around him. He held her like he had been waiting for that moment all along. When they finally pulled apart, he looked down at her with a quiet smile. "I have a proposal," he said, his voice light but serious. "Not the kind you ran from, I promise." She smiled. "What kind of proposal?" "I want to open something together, a flower cafe. Half garden, half coffee shop. You handle the flowers. I will handle the business." "Are?" Ella blinked, surprised and touched. "You are serious?" "Completely," he said. "It is time I build something that means more than money, something real." Her laughter filled the shop, soft and bright. "Then it is a deal." He reached into his pocket and handed her a small key. "For the new place," he said. "And maybe for something more." Ella took it, her fingers brushing his, and for a moment, everything fell perfectly silent. The wrong call, the storm, the heartbreak, all of it had led here. Sometimes, fate did not shout. Sometimes, it whispered through static, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. 6 months later, the old brick corner of Fifth Avenue had transformed. Where a vacant storefront once stood, sunlight now spilled through large windows, painted with the words, "The Calla Café," and blooms. Inside, the air carried the scent of roasted coffee mixed with fresh lilies. Couples lingered at tables surrounded by greenery, and laughter hummed softly over acoustic music. Behind the counter, Ella arranged flowers in a glass vase, her fingers steady and sure. Her hair was tied loosely, a small white calla lily pinned above her ear. Across the room, Lucas adjusted the lights near the cafe's new reading nook, sleeves rolled up, tie forgotten. He caught her watching him and smiled. "You said you wanted it to feel like a garden," he said. "I think we did it." She nodded, eyes glowing with quiet pride. "We did." Every shelf, every pot, every petal carried a story. The first bouquet he ever brought her sat framed near the entrance. A small plaque beneath it read, "A wrong call that led to the right life." Business had grown fast, but what mattered more were the small moments, the elderly couple who came every morning for coffee and daisies, the young girl who helped water the plants after school, and the strangers who walked in lost but always left smiling. Lucas joined Ella at the counter, sliding a cup of her favorite caramel latte toward her. "You still play that voicemail sometimes?" he teased. She laughed. "No, you told me to delete it, remember?" He smiled, leaning closer. "I know. I just wanted to be sure." She looked up at him, warmth softening her eyes. "It is funny, though. I used to think that call ruined my life. But now, I cannot imagine what my life would have been without it." Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Speaking of life changes," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "Lucas." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold ring, a calla lily engraved along the band. "I know we met by accident," he said, "but I want every choice after that to be on purpose. Will you marry me?" For a moment, the cafe fell silent except for the soft hum of music and the flutter of petals in a nearby vase. Tears welled in Ella's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. The customers nearby began to clap softly. Her mother appeared from the back room, covering her mouth with joy. Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger, and the room seemed to glow a little brighter. Later that evening, after closing, they stood outside beneath the city's golden lights. The street was quiet, the air filled with the faint hum of traffic. Lucas wrapped his coat around her shoulders, the same one he had given her that rainy day. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "Every day," he said. "Because it reminds me that sometimes the biggest miracles start with the smallest mistakes." "No." She smiled, resting her head against his chest as the first drops of rain began to fall. "Then I guess I am glad you called the wrong number." He laughed softly. "The best mistake I ever made." As they walked home through the drizzle, the city lights shimmered in the puddles around them. The call that began in loneliness had ended in love, and every heartbeat, every step, carried the same quiet truth sometimes. Fate does not arrive with a plan. It arrives with a ringing phone, a stranger's voice, and a chance to begin again.